This is Duke University.
The recent explosion at the Upper Big Branch coal mine in West Virginia opens up a series of ethical questions surrounding corporate responsibility, the interaction between public and private resources in the wake of a disaster, and the value put on human life in such situations. To discuss these issues, we sat down with Chris MacDonald, Senior Fellow at the Kenan Institute for Ethics and Associate Professor of Philosophy at St. Mary's University. Professor MacDonald writes the Business Ethics blog, a widely cited resource for commentary on issues related to business ethics and corporate social responsibility.
Coming out of this mining disaster that's been in the news so much lately, one of the key ethical questions that I think is really interesting has to do with how much corporations are obligated to spend in these kinds of situations when employees are in need of rescue. And one of the first things I like to point out is that there is a genuine ethical question here. I mean, some people are going to respond, well, that the answer is obvious. You spend whatever it takes because, after all, life is priceless and you can't put a price on a human life. And at one level, that's true. Life is not a commodity. But there are all kinds of ways in which we do end up necessarily putting a price on a human life in the allocation decisions we make and in how we decide to spend money. So one of the principles, one of the ideas that we share culturally is this idea of the rule of rescue. And the rule of rescue is this sort of cultural notion that when identifiable individuals are in danger, money is no object, right? That you should spend without consideration of the bottom line.
Yet the urgency and clarity of the rule of rescue can also serve to obscure the larger ethical questions raised by such incidents.
So there are a couple of problems with the so-called rule of rescue. One of them is that if we focus on rescue, we may allow organizations, corporations in this case, to give the illusion of commitment to workplace health and safety when in fact their past behavior doesn't bear that out. The other problem has to do with the interaction between corporate spending on one hand and public spending on the other hand. So a protracted rescue mission is inevitably going to draw not just on corporate money but also on public money. It's going to make use of emergency and health services that are funded by public monies that could otherwise have been spent on other purposes. So in effect what you have is public subsidy of past corporate risk-taking. So that's part of the larger ethical picture here.
However, despite the complexity of these issues, Professor MacDonald was quick to point out that the rule of rescue is both a powerful and justly recognized social norm, but that it should be the starting point for debate and not the stopping point.
So clearly there are some strong obligations here. We do have obligations to members of our own community during times of crisis. But our discussion about what those obligations are in particular cases needs to be embedded in a larger discussion about corporate responsibilities, as well as a discussion about the interplay between corporate and public spending and corporate and public risk-taking. But the bigger lesson here, I think, is that the ethical complexities of an issue like this are never going to be summed up by a simple but admittedly attractive idea like the idea that you can never put a price on a human life.
Produced by Duke University, online at duke.edu.